Joining me on the podcast today is a very special guest. This has been a great interview, and I had an opportunity to sit down with this man. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the music industry, and we're going to have a very frank discussion about artificial intelligence and its effects in the music and entertainment industry. It's all coming up on this episode of Weiss Thoughts. It's time for a virtual campfire sit-down with Terry Weiss. Welcome to Weiss Thoughts. We're about to have a great conversation with a man who has been passionate about music and the music industry since he was about 10 years old. It all started when he got his first bass guitar. From there, he grew into bass, electric guitar. He plays the drums. He has an arsenal, over 250 plus instruments. And at one time, he even started his own custom-build music company, building custom bass guitars and guitars for the general public. He's rubbed elbows with some of the biggest names in the music industry, such as Carol Kaye, people from In Living Color, jazz musicians, just across the board. But right now, he hangs his hat as a sales engineer at Sweetwater. Many of you may know Sweetwater is an online retailer, one of the largest in the United States, if not the world, catering to both professionals, amateurs, and those just getting into music. It's my pleasure today to have a great discussion, and I think you're really going to enjoy it too. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about how we consume our music and how artists feel about the AI revolution as well. Welcome to the program. Won't you please with me, Dave Cody. So how you been?
Yes. Things are good, man.
You've got an interesting job. And, for those of people that don't know it, why don't you just tell them a little bit about who you are, how you got where you're at, and so the audience knows, what we're talking about, why you're here.
To start, I always say that, I'm a 53-year-old man-child.
There's a lot of us in here.
All musicians are. But somebody who knows and loves their creator, and tries to reflect that and as best I can, and I don't always do a great job, in as many aspects of my life as I can. The idea is to approach anything you can with a servant's heart. But I several years ago, I went from manufacturing, where I worked in the steel industry, tool industry, welding, out of the Chicagoland market, and I moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I did so to pursue a job with Sweetwater Sound, the largest online retailer to the music industry in the United States. Mm. And it's one of these things of it's been a tremendous learning experience, not only in technical knowledge. Everybody at Sweetwater essentially goes through the equivalent of a master's degree in audio engineering in 13 weeks.
And for free, probably, right? You don't have to pay for that.
You're actually the opposite. We're paid to do it.
Oh, well, there you go. That's great.
That's part of their training. But, I'll sit there and laugh and go, I didn't make it through. I've owned businesses. We'll talk about a lot of a lot of it, what we're going to talk about, I won't spoil with transition.
Right.
But, businesses, I've done a lot of living in 53 years. Mm-hmm. And certainly professionally and intellectually, the training is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. I didn't make it through the first time, and the company kept me. But it's a neat company. We sell music gear, and for creators, right, for podcasts. That's how we met, of course.
Right, of course.
For musicians, and last weekend, as I was driving down to Tennessee, I was hanging out with the band Living Color, and some of my friends in that band. And, on the flip side, the coolest thing I do is, sell mom and dad that first drum set or that first guitar.
Right.
Which is, I know you play. I don't know if that's cast, but I'll out you.
Right. Well, I'd like to call it
you
playing. Some other people call it noise. Some people call it pain. You know, I guess it's all in the ear of the listener, I guess.
But it's one of those things of it's a lifelong companion for every musician. It's the way we interact with the world,
Right.
And express ourselves in the world. And the coolest thing you can ever do is there's mom and dad, and you talk them. This is the reason that you shouldn't buy Junior's first guitar at Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And you go through and you have that interaction, and you get to connect with somebody and do something special and let them know that they're special. And and hopefully create a lifelong musician. Hopefully create somebody with some of the same loves and joys and hangups we got.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like I said, it's inspiring people. Now, music is an art form, obviously, and there's all kinds of music. In fact, we've had many a long discussion. I call you up to buy some strings, and next thing I know, it's 45 minutes have passed, and we're talking about all kinds of stuff with regards to music and creativity. And it's about eliciting, getting that emotion. A lot of musicians you can watch when they're playing. The one I can think of that just pops right into my head, Stevie Ray Vaughan, when he played guitar, obviously a master at his craft, but you watch the faces he would make, even in the slower blues, songs that he would do. He would make the guitar face, but he was in a zone, and he talked about that. He thought he was channeling his inner black man, his inner black musician, and he hung around with black blues musicians, and he just, being from Texas and being around that environment where, the blues down in that Delta area in Texas and where everything comes from, and like you said,
huge Lonnie Mac fan.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray.
Yeah. All of them, Albert King, BB King. In fact, I'm not sure. I thought I saw in an interview one time or heard in a podcast interview that someone said about Stevie Ray Vaughan when he met, I think it was Albert King, because Albert King really didn't care for other musicians, not in a bad way. It's just he wanted to kind of do his own thing. But yet when he met Stevie Ray Vaughan, I believe it was him, he said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, that he found like his long lost brother. This guy was born to play this music. He couldn't believe it. He thought, here comes a white guy trying to muscle in on the black man's music. But once they played, and then he played with him, and everything, and they had a great interaction because it's about that emotional connection. So what I want to ask you, Dave, speaking about emotional connection here, AI is in the forefront of everybody's mind. It's on everybody's lips about everything from, authors writing books in the medical industry, but also big time in the entertainment industry. We're just getting over here a long holdout with the Writers Actors Guild and SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, about AI in the arts and their fears and hesitation to just go into this seemingly new technology, but it's actually been kind of around since the 50s and 60s, but very, very, minimal. But now it's at the forefront because I believe society, technology, and time has caught up. And what are your thoughts? Because I can scour the internet and find something that can make music. I can find something that can take a voice and do that. For me, I think we need legislation in place that doesn't take away creativity. I just can't connect with an AI voice singing a song, even as close as they try to get it to have an emotional connection. I can still probably maybe two or three, or maybe a verse or so in, I can tell this is not a real person. That can't be, or it's really heavily pitch corrected or auto-tuned.
Sure. No, it's because that same argument has been made about synthesizers. That same argument was made about cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all these, and so you sit there and go out, and the argument itself is dated because rock music wasn't real music. Mm-hmm. Jazz music wasn't real music. But in the same breath, Have you heard the Now and Then, the Beatles tune that came out thanks to AI? And there's a lot of misunderstandings about that song.
Mm-hmm.
What worked and what AI did was it cleaned up the tracks. It removed the noise that was there. It didn't perform anything. It didn't, it just made it so that it was listenable.
And I think that's where the distinction is that, and I'm all for that. Anything that you can take, especially those old 78s of great jazz, or like, Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson recordings that were recorded back in a time, cleaning that up with AI and making that clear so we can really enjoy the artist's performance and their message. I take umbrage with the fact that, humans need to create. Since the beginning of time, I mean, it was God ordained into us, or whatever you believe, but, our inherent soul and spirits, we love to create. We weren't meant to get up, go sit in a cubicle all damn day long, or punch, break rocks in a quarry, or drive a truck. We have to, every human being, I don't care who you are, has some type of creative outlet, whether it's writing, it could be, shooting a basketball or playing baseball, running, whatever, poetry, anything, humming, whatever. And I think inherently AI to me, and again, this is my opinion, AI to me is a veritable Pandora's box that we've opened. It's opened. It's out there. There's no shutting it back in at this point. But a lot of things that the human race does and has done throughout time, not always, but a good portion of the time, we just go forward and say, yeah, this is great, this is wonderful, but we very rarely, on some occasions, look at short and or long-term ramifications, especially when something as powerful as this, i.e. Terminator, Skynet, and when, if a computer ever decides that, and it's controlling heavy weapons or nuclear weapons, and it decides, well, these people, this organic life form is the problem. I mean, this is what's causing all the problems in the world, not computers and machines. And I think something like that can happen. And I'm not trying to be sensationalistic here, if there is such a word. I think that if a computer is smart enough to do all the things I'm seeing it doing, it would be smart enough to say, yeah, this is kind of like a parasite, the human race. Maybe we should do something to get rid of that.
Sure. It's so the interesting thing to me with AI, or any of those arguments, right? When you talk about synthesizers or what have you, and you look at and the hands of someone who is classically trained, and the hands of someone who's talented, the finished product ends up being art. When you think about a graphic artist and somebody working in the digital field, you see folks with photo correction as an example. When the person behind the AI knows how to do it organically, knows how to do, has gone through and done, in the example of photography, photo correction and those things. AI is just a tool, and it's a very useful tool. What you're talking about, and it's very interesting, and I think you're right. We are on the cusp of transition of because there's software out there that I can with a recording DAW, digital audio workstation, and the software that exists out there, I can sit there and take something that is absolutely trash, and sit there and put it in and go with a sequencer and set that sequencer up to auto generate, auto step, and create a rhythm that's catchy.
Right.
That I can go and take audio of someone yelling at their kid and harmonize it, put it through auto tune, put it through a pitch correction, put it through Melodyne, and loop it back off. And lo and behold, it sounds like music. It sounds
sure. Yeah. And people have already been doing that, of taking goofy things, phrases or, something like that, and made songs.
Right.
And
And
I guess it has
it's
its
funny
place.
because the folks that know how to do it, when you see folks that are running software, and it's computer generated music for all practical purposes through software.
Mm-hmm.
The folks that don't know how to play a guitar, don't know how to play a drum set, don't know, they can do that, and it's kind of neat that it gives them the outlet for expression.
Right.
But what they end up doing is very low rent. It's not the top shelf.
Right.
But yet you put those same tools in the hands of Herbie Hancock.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, man, it's fantastic.
And you bring up an interesting point. I want to touch on something that you just said here before, because I don't want to lose my thought that I had when you said it. You said putting the tools in the hands of like amateurs who actually may not know how to play a musical instrument or may not want to take the time to learn or invest, but are just kind of, for lack of a better term, circumventing the system to make, electronic digital music and what have you. And you say it's low rent. I agree with you in that. And the question I'm going to ask you, the public's hunger, or what? Maybe let me rephrase it differently. The public's expectation, the listening public.
Mm-hmm.
I think when a lot of stuff like that comes out, I think it lowers the bar then, because I like a good mixed track. I like to hear, and it doesn't have to be 55 instruments. It doesn't have to be a 5-piece band. It doesn't have to be a 10-piece band or orchestra or anything. For example, the James Gang back from this, the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. 3 guys, bass, guitar, and drums. Joe Walsh and his other 2 guys in the trio there. Or the John Mayer trio when he went out with Pino Palladino and I'm trying to think of the drum. What was the other guy's name in there with him? But the John Mayer trio. Great music, things like that. But those are musicians. Those are artists, I don't think they were looping anything or sampling or anything. And again, I'm not trying to put those that enjoy that, but I'm wondering if it doesn't, lower the quality expectation of the general public, because I say that because like Neil Young is a big proponent of, he wants high-end music. He doesn't like the trash, and he has been railing against this for 20 plus years. Ever since the days of those of us that might remember Napster when it came out, where you could download, scam music off the internet, and the big lawsuits that started the whole thing, with the RIAA. But his contention is, you have better fidelity on a CD as opposed to an MP3 file. But now, though, you have upgrades in that audio format. You have lossless codecs and things like that Apple iTunes are using, and Spotify and Tidal and other streaming services. But when you said that statement, though, that really struck me of, you got someone who can kind of circumvent the system, and they can take, bang on a pan or something and make a song and warp and manipulate it. While it does open up more creative opportunities for those of folks out there that may not want to or can't comprehend or learn or something, I'm wondering if it doesn't take away maybe a little bit. What are your thoughts?
So, and you're hitting on it of, there's not a solid answer, right? Because if it's somebody's gateway in, if it's how how they come through the door, fantastic. We want everybody to be able to express themselves and be able to, and but and I'm not going to pick on who I want to.
Okay.
But when you have somebody sit there and I am going to pick on who I want to.
Go ahead.
Somebody comes up with Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang.
Mm-hmm.
and because of TikTok, because of social media, because the $1 million deal, and they're
Yeah.
That I agree with you. That does lower the bar.
Yeah.
That does. It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that being made.
Right.
In fact, the fact that was made was fantastic. But that becomes the standard when you sit there and you go, hey, you two can throw something together in minutes
Right.
and make $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
where other
again,
people
what
out here
becomes-
are busting their balls, spending 10, getting a guitar at 7 years old and learning and spending that time, the next 7 years of their life, day and night, sleeping, learning their craft, honing their craft, really making that emotional dedication to it.
Right.
And bonding with the music and the instrument. I just think in some cases it's flippant. It's like going to the store and buying a cheeseburger instead of buying the ground beef yourself and tenderizing the meat and seasoning it. You're looking for the drive-through solution. Like I was scrolling through videos last night. I went down that wormhole on YouTube. And I was scrolling through some people going through reaction videos. I like going to certain channels that have reaction videos, especially when it comes to music. Now, I was watching this one channel for probably about 40, 45 minutes, just watching the first few minutes of each songs that they were doing. And they were reviewing a lot of older songs, stuff from the 60s, Beach Boys, Beatles, Lovin' Spoonful, Mamas and the Papas, Yardbirds. Then they got into the 70s stuff, like the Doobie Brothers,
right.
Foghat, AC, late AC, early AC/DC, I would say at this day and age, Leonard Skinner and a bunch of Led Zeppelin, Joe Walsh, Eagles stuff. And these were younger people, that were reviewing it. They were probably, I would have to say, in the 20 to 30 range, maybe 25, 35-year-old range or 20 to 30 range, if I could tell. And they were saying, wow, this sounds just so much more emotional, and it's more... And the one young lady, because it was her and her husband, said, I'm connecting with this. It's not like when I turn on the radio and I hear the same, the same chord sequence over and over in 75 songs going throughout my playlist throughout the day. This is different, and it's telling a real story. I can understand the lyrics. It has a great hook, and it makes me want to listen, and it's pulling me into something. And I think that's what it's all about with music. And the other,
you hit on something really interesting. I want to hit on eventually, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, then on the flip side of that, after I scrolled about 40, 45 minutes through their channel, because they had like 300 of them, like, oh my God, I came across, do you know who Oliver Anthony is?
I don't know why I know that name, but I know
he was
name.
really big about 6-7 months ago. He's from, I believe, somewhere in the South, around maybe Virginia way or Kentucky way. He was the redheaded gentleman with the beard and everything. It's just him and his resonator guitar. His voice and his resonator guitar. He made that anthem about the common man getting screwed over by rich men north of and then he
north of Richmond or something like that.
And then he had another one I was listening to through his videos, I Want to Go Home. And then there was another song about getting sober. I need to get sober. And just listening to those songs, and I even went and watched a couple reaction channels that were reacting to it. And I had the same reaction before I went to the other reaction channels as these people did. It's just his voice and a resonator guitar, lyrics that just reach into your guts and your heart and soul and say, man, I get where you're coming from, brother. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I've felt that way. I'm pissed off, or I'm sad, or I'm trying to kick this, or I feel, like I don't count. And to me, that's what music is about. Know, and when we get into this whole AI thing, like you said, it has its purpose and its place. Absolutely. Saving old recordings. I mean, how many recordings are on tape somewhere from the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s that are on, some type of magnetic tape or even, compact discs they're not going to last forever. But maybe this
Oh,
way, digitally, we can enhance and save and preserve the original intent.
and it brings up several interesting points. And the first, I will sit there and say, when I talk about, the idea that, okay, throwing something together quick to make money. There's nothing wrong with an artist producing something for the goal of making money.
Right.
In fact, some of the best pop tunes ever made were written for the of making money.
Right.
Um, you know, and so that's the first hurdle that people go, well, yeah. So what you're saying is it needs to be for artistic and no, there's some great music out there that was the intent of I want to write a hit so that I can make lots of money.
Yeah. Feed my family, pay off my house, not have to worry about working for the man, Yeah.
Right. So you sit there and that becomes an interesting argument. When you talk about the music of the 60s and the 70s in particular, and through the 80s, you think about it, Terry, and we, that friend that had that Pioneer rack system or a component system and some big speakers. I know I had some Magna planers. They were ribbon speakers. They're the size of doors. They were thin. They horribly impractical, took a lot of power to run them.
Yeah.
But oh my God, they sounded glorious, And it's interesting you talk about, how well engineered that stuff was, how good it sounds. And the reason it sounded so good was we knew that we'd be listening to it on something where we could hear how good it sounded.
Right.
We could hear
exactly.
And now, the point of, overly compressed MP3 going through a Bluetooth, going through, some Beats headphones, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Every step of the way, we just took this down a notch. We degraded it. And so that, you look at Steely Dan's Asia, man, nobody, maybe listened through a really good set of headphones.
Right. Yeah.
But chances are they listen through, a full, stereo or maybe even a quadraphonic stereo. For most people now, their best listening experience is in their car.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you think about this and go, okay, and we've done it here at Sweetwater as critical listening and learning how to mix, learning how to engineer these things, and learning new tools on how to do it because you kind of come in with a skill set. But when you do that, there are some big songs, and I'm talking song of the year, big songs, and you listen to them on your iPhone or through your laptop, and it sounds great. And you listen to it through a really good set of headphones or a really good set of monitor speakers, and it sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And you sit there and go, oh, why does it sound horrible? Well, not because they didn't know how to record it, not because they were rushing toward a dollar sign,
right?
But the exact opposite, that they mixed it that way because they know that mono is the new stereo.
Right. How it was going to be consumed.
Right. Mono is, we listen from a Bluetooth speaker if we're lucky.
Yeah.
A single source Bluetooth speaker, mono. Or we listen to worse yet, our phone. Hey, listen to this.
Yeah.
Or our laptop. When we're scrolling videos.
Yeah.
And all of these things do sound bad compared to your older brother's stereo in 1976.
Well, we remember the things they used to be carrying around all around the big cities, and and then it made its way to the suburbs. Boom boxes. Remember those things were like carrying a suitcase on your shoulder. You see people going down, or you put that in the backyard with the party and crank it up, and it was like that was, and then we went shrunk, Walkman, down to the phone. Now we're down to earbuds, and little micro things or wearables that you can record music on, which, I understand,
sunglasses that have headphones
earbuds in them.
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, yeah, it's great, the digital age and all, but, I think I agree with you.
Thanks
there
for
is
joining
some
me today
fidelity
for part one
of our interview with Dave Cody. Look for part 2 coming on our next episode. And as always, if you've gotten some value out of this podcast, would you please leave us a positive rating and review? Don't forget to visit the website weissthoughts.com, WYCE, weissthoughts.com, and stop by my voiceover business website, Weiss Productions, or terryweiss.com. I can be reached at either one of those. Let me bring your words to life for you. Thank you once again for being part of the podcast of Weiss Thoughts and joining us for our virtual campfire sit-down. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and we'll see you on the next episode of Weiss Thoughts.